Hi, Margaret, can you hear us okay?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We got about 4 minutes before we start. I just wanted to test the mic.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, so we
Send out in pieces anyway. They fall asleep.
The state.
Oh, I
and,
imagine so.
about, the most recent was cyber attacks from Iran on statuses.
I was so upset when I.
So that's like a large wastewater plant.
Yeah, and Jason's response.
Check your people passes.
Went along, I got like 6 o'clock. Oh.
Right, Margaret, you are up.
Right, that is kind of.
Yeah, it was.
All right.
Okay. And you guys will have to help me out because I have never done this before and I don't totally understand the script, but I think the first thing to do is call the meeting to order.
Yeah.
So I'll assume it's something like, I hereby call the Town of Paonia Planning Commission meeting on Monday, May 4th, 2026 to order. Does
Yes.
that work?
Yes, and you go along with what the agenda is outlined. First you have roll call, approval of minutes, and you just go down the list.
Okay, so the next thing would be roll call.
Yes, ma'am. Chair Bachman is out. Vice Chair Doherty,
Present.
Commissioner Fisher,
Present.
Commissioner Hunter is recused. Commissioner Smith
Here.
and Commissioner Wynn.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay.
Okay, great. And then the next item is approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
The motion carries.
Oh, you gotta say
Oh,
all.
do we have to vote? Okay. See, I'm gonna need your help, so we all have to vote.
All right. I.
Okay, the motion carries. Okay, next is approval of the minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
And what do I say here to get people to vote?
All in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I have to tell you, the first night I was mayor, I could not remember all in favor. So I did the same thing you did.
I mean, I've been to so many of these meetings as staff, but never on the commission, so, or just a few with you guys. Okay, so next on the agenda is the public hearing. Is that right? Do we do that first before staff?
Correct.
Okay, so now I have to switch to the document you gave me for the public hearing. So, thank you for your patience. Okay, I will now open the public hearing to consider an application from Emily Sinclair and Jay Kenny of 232 Grand Avenue LLC for a special use review of the off-street parking requirement in Paonia Municipal Code, Section 16-6-10, at the property located at 232 Grand Avenue, Paonia, Colorado, 81428. The purpose of the public hearing is to provide a public forum for all interested parties who wish to comment on these applications before the Planning Commission. The procedure for the public hearing will be as follows. First, there will be a presentation by staff. Second, there will be a presentation by the applicant. After these two presentations, we will allow members of the public to speak for up to 5 minutes. All testimony must be presented at the lectern after you give your full name and address, and I swear you in. Please do not repeat points made by others, but it is fine to say that you agree or disagree with a comment previously made. Please direct all your comments to the Planning Commission and not to the town staff or the applicant. After receiving public comments, we will allow the applicant and town staff an opportunity to respond and answer any questions raised by the public comment. I will then turn the matter over to the Planning Commission, and the Commission may ask questions of anyone who testified. We generally will not ask questions during the presentations. Finally, I will close the public hearing, and the commissioners will discuss the matter and may take some kind of action. Once the public hearing has closed, no further comment from the applicant or public will be taken. However, the commission may ask for advice from the town attorney. Public hearings are recorded for the public record. Do we have proper notification?
Yes, madam.
Okay. Do any commissioners have any disclosures?
No.
No.
Okay. Okay, would Coordinator Bachran please give the staff presentation?
Sure, and I was going to offer with the committee's approval a shorter version of this instead of a word for word reading, if that is okay with all you all.
Works for me.
Yes.
We all have it in front of us.
Right. So in brief, the building is undergoing a large interior renovation to change the space from a gym into a cafe bookstore combination. And the applicant is preemptively seeking to address the number of parking spaces required in the town code as presented below. So the very short version is the property is zoned C1 and it is subject to an off-street parking ordinance in section 16-6-10 that says the following number of off-street parking spaces shall be provided with a construction, addition, or change of use which requires a special review to any buildings and uses the table listed below. There are a lot more things listed on that table. I just pulled out the two that were most relevant, which is retail businesses and indoor bars and restaurants. And then it's up to the Planning Commission to decide which of those uses is most appropriate if it is not a very clear use. Retail seems the most appropriate based on how the current space is used and the future space is going to be used. I did a bunch of math for y'all. So that if it is defined as a restaurant, it requires 13.33 parking spaces. It's unclear whether that is rounded up or down. If it's defined as a retail establishment, that is 7.87 parking spaces. And if it's defined as a combination of the two, I used, they had a really great accessibility plan that broke out seats and areas and all of that, and I used that to come up with a total of 10.41 spaces. And right now, the plans contain 3 spots. There are 2 up front, but because this is off-street parking specifically, the 2 up front don't really count, so it does contain between 23% and 43% of what's required. I would also like to note that I measured out the spot, one of the spots behind is big enough to be an ADA van accessible spot if they so choose, which I would recommend. I would say there is precedent for this. 2 relatively recent businesses on this west side of Grand Avenue, 138 and 130 Grand, required variances and then applied for a parking variance because of it, because they were doing some remodeling and changing the business. They were both granted those, and as far as I could tell, with a condition that they signed an agreement with the town that they were using that lot. And should a non-existent entity come back into being, which is the parking. Give me just a sec, sorry, the parking fund, which was originally designed for this specific purpose, so that that lot would be jointly paid for any other public parking the town owned. But that is currently suspended indefinitely, so the agreement, I assume, would mention something about if the parking fund comes back into place, you will be paying into the parking fund. So it is normal for the area to do that. The west side of 1 and 200 blocks of Grand Avenue, as the applicant has pointed out in their application, does not have a lot of options for parking, period, other than those front spots and the public lot. I have the rules for off-site parking. Which it does not currently meet, which is one of the reasons we are here. And then the desirability and need for the use is, it's unclear because we can't do a traffic and a parking study about it, but we definitely have a lot of anecdotal notes about how people feel about the parking on Grand Avenue, which is not necessarily fact-based, but it is a lot of the information we do have. So a lot about parking being scarce during festivals and summer weekends. And we do have a study, about the 2020 Main Street revitalization interim report. And it shows that the public has a strong perception of inadequate parking on Grand Avenue, as well as a lack of awareness on alternate parking options such as side streets and public lots. And you see that show up in the next section on compatibility with the comprehensive plan. So there are 3 policies that are related to this, one of which is parking of vehicles, trailers, and any equipment should be adequately planned for and not impact the tree growing zones. This is the attempt to adequately plan for that parking. And tree growing zones, I imagine, would have to do with people parking on the sides if they couldn't otherwise find parking. Policy Econ 8, which encourages the use of shared parking, on-street parking, and other strategies to maximize the use of available resources, using signage and other wayfinding to direct visitors to parking. And then Policy Econ 9, which ensures that all public buildings, businesses, and event venues planned for include ADA parking and entrances, which is possible if the applicant so decides. So basically, there should be some consideration of parking. The Econ 8 policy suggests that, hey, maybe we have enough and we just need to redirect people there a little more efficiently. And then the ADA could be an addition. Most of the rest of this is not applicable. E is, again, mentions ADA, so I once again mentioned that it could be a spot. So we're going to drop all the way down to the discussion and staff recommendations. So again, this is something not without precedent. I'm gonna get a bit closer to reading this section than trying to extemporarily summarize. The business plan substantially conforms to the comprehensive plan, especially should they decide to provide a van accessible parking space behind the building. And as the applicant notes, the availability is difficult. A thriving bookstore and cafe in the central business district likely benefits other downtown businesses and probably encourages more time spent downtown, which are both a benefit to the town. The two previous examples of 138 Grand and 130 Grand Avenue's request to use public parking were issues that arose during the course of a special use review the businesses were required to undergo. So I'm going to split these down. During a remodel, 130 Grand Avenue, Fiona's Bartique was requesting to shift the property's use from a common area for gathering to a cocktail lounge bar, which most closely resembled a commercial recreational use. A process that requires a special review in the C1 district per section 16.370 of Paonia's municipal code. So if you don't know, Paonia's code is set that each district has certain things by right. And they have certain things that are only allowable by special review, which is like this process, and things that are prohibited. So the commercial recreational use was permitted, but only by special review, so it underwent that review. 138 Grand, the Hearth or TLC submitted a building permit application that included uses not permitted by right in the C1 district, which again, a gathering space and public workshop area that fits into the commercial recreational use, which requires a special review for the zoning specifically. TLC did submit an additional application for a variance for parking, but a larger review was required due to the additional uses in the building. And I believe Commissioner Wynn could speak to these two more specifically as I just read all the documents that go with them. So Cafe Paonia Books in its currently location next to 232 Grand Avenue at 234 is primarily a bookstore with a few tables and a barista behind the counter on one side. The new design provides more seating and more counter space for the cafe. The remodel building would be at least partially, if not fully, a retail business, which is permitted by right in C1 district, and arguably a restaurant permitted by right in a C1 district again. It stands distinct from Fiona's Bartique as it does not have a large portion devoted to, retail. Coffee is not limited to consumption on the premises, and seats and tables are not uncommon in bookstores. Because the applicant is not changing the zoning or applying for a use that requires a special review, it could be argued that the provision requiring compliance with parking regulations has not been, quote, triggered. And I would also like to note here, this was a preemptive application. This is something the applicant gave to us. It's not something we requested. And here is that rule. The following number of off-street parking spaces shall be provided with the construction, addition, or change of use, which requires a special review to any of the buildings and uses the table listed below, which is, the number of seats. So staff recommends a discussion of whether or not the special review is necessary in this case. If the commission determines that it is necessary, staff recommends that the commission recommends acceptance of SR 2026-001's request to use public parking to achieve the required number of spaces with the addition of an agreement between the town for parking use signed by the applicant prior to the remodel being given any temporary or permanent certificates of occupancy. So I wrote 3 potential motions. One is I move to dismiss the applicant because the remodel does not meet the requirements of 16.610A to require off-street parking. I move to recommend approval because the plan substantially conforms to the comprehensive plan and the review criteria and performance standards have been met by the applicant with the following condition: that the applicant completes an off-street parking agreement with the town of Paonia prior to receiving a temporary or permanent certificate of occupancy. And 3 is I move to recommend denial of the application because the applicant has failed to demonstrate substantial conformity to the comprehensive plan and has failed to satisfy the review criteria and performance standard requirements of the town's code. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. And are we allowed to ask questions of staff now, or do we have to wait?
What's the script say?
Hang on,
Yeah,
That was great. You'll be able to ask, the commission will be able to discuss amongst themselves after the hearing.
Okay. And are there any other staff comments?
No. I'm just.
No.
No. Oh, I forget you can't see us over here.
That's okay. I can sort of see you. Okay, then we can move to the applicant presentation. Would the applicant or the applicant's representative please come up to the podium, state your name and your address for the record, and take the oath?
Would you like me to take the oath first?
Yes.
Or
Oh, okay. Well, do you swear to tell the truth in this matter?
I do?
Your name and address for the record?
My name is Jay Kenny. I live in Delta County, unincorporated Delta County, on Back River Road.
Okay, please make your presentation.
Maybe I could point out that my wife, Emily Sinclair, is also here. Perhaps the chair could swear her in as well.
Sure. Emily, do you swear to tell the truth in this matter?
I do.
Thank you. Can you please state your name and your address, please, for the record?
I'm Emily Sinclair and I live on Back River Road in Delta County, out of town.
Okay, please make your presentation.
Thank you. I just want to comment, well, just one piece of the staff report, which is the idea that if the parking fund is ever resurrected, that we would then somehow be backed into it. And this is not a criminal proceeding, of course, but it has that feeling of, wait a minute, it wasn't alive when we were granted a variance. We shouldn't be forced back into it as if it were an ex post facto situation. It's a small point. I should say first that Emily and I own 3 businesses. The third business doesn't always get the same attention as the first 2. We own a coffee shop, a bookstore, and a cider company. The cider company has a sales room inside the building we currently occupy, and I expect to have a sales room inside 234. All of these, in my read of the ordinances, are retail businesses. I think you could stretch and say the coffee shop is something like a restaurant, but we are not classified as a restaurant by Delta County Health. We are classified as a business that sells limited prepackaged foods, or not prepackaged if it's pastries and such. The coffee shop, in terms of data that might be useful to this commission, the coffee shop is open 7 days a week, from 7 in the morning till 2 p.m. The bookstore is open 5 days a week, typically from noon until 5. And the tasting room is open on Saturdays from 2 to 5. There is some overlap between the coffee shop and the bookstore. It's about 2 hours. So it's not a question of having 2 businesses that are both constantly having people coming and going. There's a very small amount of overlap there. And as I look at the parking ordinance, it suggests that we currently need, if we're primarily going to be a retail business, that we need 7 parking spaces off street on our own lot. And I read the ordinance closely. The commission may have different interpretations, staff may have different interpretations, but I read it as saying it has to be on our lot. So there is one space that we created by taking down a storage shed that had been built on a concrete pad behind the building. As far as I can tell, that space doesn't count, because it has to be accessible from the public right of way. That is, it has to be accessible from a street. So it also has to be street accessible, right? Surfaced with asphalt, concrete, or any dustless surface approved by the planning commission. That's the definition in the ordinance. It also has to be, if you have 7 spaces, landscaped with a plan approved by the planning commission as well. If you can't meet that standard, then you have to go to off-site parking. Off-site parking has to be within 300 feet of the building. And it has to be a site that the applicant, that's us, that we own. So we fail in all regards. We don't have a space. It is properly surfaced, but it's not accessible from the street. And to describe it as one that would be useful to somebody in an accessible van, I find a stretch. So let me first say, my first argument is that the parking ordinance applies only when a building is being constructed, that is a new building. When an addition is made to an existing building, or there is a change of use in the space. And I have copies of the ordinances if that would be useful to any members of the commission. But I actually assume that you're familiar with this because it comes up with some regularity. I can't actually say if there's been a change of use because I can't find anywhere in the ordinances that describes where a fitness business would fit. So, because I can't figure out where a fitness business would fit, I go back to the next previous business, which was a retail business. I also can't tell if the fitness business would have ever had to apply for any change in parking or off-site parking or off-street parking. I don't see that because the previous occupant, the tenant, didn't build the building, didn't make an addition to it. Maybe it was a change of use, but I can't tell what it was a change of use to. So what I would urge the commission to do is to say, this is not a change of use. The ordinance does apply. Thank you very much, Jay and Emily, for preemptively addressing this so we don't have to send a code inspector around to give you a notice that you're not in compliance. That would be my first argument, is let's put this to bed now. If you go down the other pathway of saying, well, we need to decide if it is a change of use, and we think it is a change of use, and therefore we have to evaluate in what to me are very uncertain terms and uncertain language, whether this is an appropriate use within the meaning of a retail business. The problem I have with that is that aside from the 2020 CDOT survey that was done in conjunction, I believe, with the change.
It's the fifth and red.
It's the 5th and Grain reorientation, which we're still waiting on. And that's interesting.
No, there was a revitalizing Main Street thing.
Oh, done.
Okay,
Yeah.
20.
that's all right.
Not Fifth and Grain.
Not 5th and Grain. Well, either way, it's interesting. It's sort of useful in terms of data that would support a decision or a no decision by the commission, but it's not data driven. People's perception is that it's crowded. It is crowded on weekends and festivals. But that's not data. It's also unclear to me what the standard of review is. If you're going to say there was a retail space there before, there's going to be a retail space there now. They were different retail spaces. That's true. Do you want to get in the business? Do you want to be in the business as a planning commission of saying, well, you sell poppies and they sold posies, so that's a change of use? I don't think so. The planning commission and the trustees set up a schedule of uses. It's table 16-3 and section 16-3-70. And there are very specific uses that are either allowed as a matter of right or permitted after special review hearing, or can absolutely not ever be in the C1 district. Those are the only categories that we have to work with. So without some direction, some ordinance guidance on how we evaluate our particular application for a variance, about the best that I can do is give you a taste of what the community thinks of the three businesses through the sort of reliable lens of Google reviews. Well, is it any less reliable than perceptions of crowding on Grand Avenue? No, I don't think so. So let me just give you a quick flavor and then I'll sit down. The coffee shop has had 100 reviews and it has 4.9 stars out of 5. The cider sales room for the cider company has 50 reviews and 5.0 stars. Some of those reviews, I will tell you, are from a previous location. And the bookstore has 19 reviews with 5.0 stars. The written reviews include one that says, wow, did not expect coffee this good in a town this small. Friendly service too. You can smell how good the beans are when you walk in though. Another one said the vibes are immaculate. It's a great spot for co-working or conversation where you can enjoy great coffee with excellent ambiance. They also have top tier local pastries like almond croissant. The nicest coffee shop I've been to in a long time. Lots of cool books to peruse and buy, incredibly good coffee, really comfortable atmosphere. And I won't read all of these to you, but I will read this one because it mentions great place to find books from very well-read owners.
Yes.
We also stopped by on Saturday for their cider tasting, which Jay makes himself. They're great to grab a drink and a book to enjoy on their back porch area with a cider in hand. That's all I have. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything.
Oh, no.
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Okay, and I will now open the public comment portion of the public hearing.
This is a pretty empty room.
Okay, thanks.
And on Zoom.
I didn't see anybody walk up to the lectern. Okay. So there would be no further, is there any further comment from the applicant or town staff?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Maybe just, yeah. The one thing I did notice in the code specifically was that it was, a change of use which requires a special review to any of the buildings, and there is no change of use that requires a special review, in my opinion.
Can you point to that specific citation? Because I don't see it. That's why I'm.
It's 16610A.
And you have it in your packet
It's
too.
in the, yeah.
You need a page number in the packet.
I see it. The following number of off-street parking spaces shall be provided with construction, addition, or change of use, which requires a special review to any of the buildings and uses listed in table 65 below.
Since none of the uses require a special review, right, they're by right uses, is how I'm reading it, but again, this is not there's interpretation in here. And the planning commission is mentioned several times in this ordinance as the group that makes those decisions.
Okay. Should I close the public comment portion of the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Before we turn to the planning commission questions and deliberations, I want to state that the documents included as part of the record for this public hearing include all application materials submitted by the applicant, all materials included in the packet, all written referral and public comments received regarding the application, the notice of hearings, and the town's ordinances. Does anyone have any objection to the inclusion of these items in the record?
No.
Okay. So we'll go to the commissioners. Who would like to begin?
So if I could ask a question, so I believe Jay asked, so the people that moved into the building and they're doing an exercise in the front. I'm not aware that they asked for any change of use, and I don't even know where they would end up in the,
Right, because if they
Where
didn't
does it-
actually do any remodeling, I don't know that we would have been noticed in any way that it was under a change of use, because I think that would likely, a gym would likely fall under the same thing, the commercial recreation use, because a lot of the examples are things you pay a membership fee for, or that you pay to go in. And I was not able to find any special use reviews for this property. And there were a lot of different changes, several restaurants, and several building permits, but no special reviews.
So I've got questions. Is there a building permit application on file?
Yes, there is.
And is it alteration, construction? What is it?
It is a commercial remodel. And it is primarily interior, the exterior work, I would argue, is superficial. Other than the ramp, which we have another hearing for, so we don't need to talk about the ramp.
God, we could have that taken care of.
The ramp's covered.
And so I think the big question is, are we gonna, okay. Coffee shop, will it have racks of books or from the bookstore, possibly for sale, or is it separate?
So part of the packet should have been, there's a big picture that lines it all out. It's on page, I wanna say 3 or 4. Oh, did I not turn it?
It is, no, it's there.
I can
All the way down, you got to go down to the end.
Yeah,
Essentially, the perimeter of the interior is all bookshelves, except for we're putting in 2 bathrooms, an ADA and changing table compliant one, and then a staff one, so staff doesn't have to line up. And it will also be interrupted by the coffee bar. But the books will be integrated with the coffee shop, although the entire back is only books. So there's only seating up front, but there are books everywhere.
Okay, and tasting room, is that all gonna be, or is it separate?
So the tasting room is really a concept that the Department of Revenue uses to define where alcohol may be consumed
Okay,
or used. And so the license will be for the entire building. It will be sold at the coffee bar.
that makes sense. So I was trying to figure out if we're, if a combination of uses would be appropriate, or if this kind of fits into retail. It's all one, it's not like it's 3 separate things, right? It's all one. To me, it almost makes sense that retail is the designation that we give to it. With the code, there's a comma, and so that's like, what does that comma mean?
All the work in that sense.
And so I almost feel like this would be like the appropriate mechanism for deciding if there's additional parking spaces. To be clear, you have three parking spaces in the back between the 2 addresses?
Between the 2, we have 3, and we will retain 2 and allow 1 to go with the renter of 234, the existing building.
Okay, and so there's gonna be a potential 4th use for the lease?
No, 234 will continue to own it,
Uh-huh.
but it will have a tenant up front.
Oh.
And we are keeping the back room,
Uh-huh.
as backstock books,
Just backstock.
table, yeah.
Okay.
Staff, lunch and stuff like that.
So, and so then that space would be like an employee parking space for that tenant?
Yeah, they will have one
Uh-huh,
at the current bookstore. They will have called the space next to Needle Rock.
uh-huh.
And we will have the other spaces available because we essentially have two employees. At our, we have a barista and a bookseller that overlap by 2 hours. The rest of the time, it's just one
Yeah.
employee.
And so that is consistent with what we've done in the past, where we've said, hey, we're requiring you to have employee spaces. And it would make sense that they've met that condition. The bigger issue is, what do we do with, the required parking for like a retail establishment? And that's where, once that code was nixed to get rid of the parking fund, we had to have a mechanism so that people could to actually apply or adhere to the code, and that's where these parking agreements came into play. Because as our code says, you would have to own property off-site to be able to have additional parking. That's just not feasible for Grand Avenue. And so we were going through this process to make sure that people are able to adhere to the code as a legal instrument.
And within 300 feet of their
Yeah.
business.
That's almost impossible.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm allowed to offer something, but the ordinance that we're talking about, addition, construction, change of use, probably needs a fine eye over it, because you can read it 3 or 4 times and come up with 3 or 4 different interpretations. And I, as one would want to be, read it as closely as I could in our favor.
Of course. And that all makes sense. I think I've asked my question. So we do know that there's gonna be a remodel permit on file. The big question that I had, is this really a mix of uses? Or is this, do we classify it as retail? I mean, I think the primary use for this whole thing is retail.
So I would say that in terms of the cider company sales, more than 75% of the revenue is from people coming in to buy a bottle of cider. The tasting pieces of it are really designed just to bring people in to taste it and go, yes, I'll buy a case.
Yeah. And so somebody could essentially buy a glass of cider and sit and read.
They could, absolutely.
To me, this feels retail. So,
If you went pure square footage, the bookstore has more square footage than the coffee shop.
Yeah.
I mean, just a simple. It's not by a ton, but it is more book square footage.
and your required off-street parking between the two would be 7, we round out 7. And you have 3, so you're talking 4. Right?
Yeah, if you're going with retail based on that, man.
Yeah.
And I had asked the question of Thina if she knew when the CERT was in there, because they had commercial up front and they had a restaurant in the back. Did they come in for any change of use that you
They
found?
did not.
Okay. Yeah.
So one of the lessons I've learned about, not so much Paonia, but because we live in Delta County, is that you're always smartest to do whatever you want to do and then beg forgiveness. And I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way, but that is kind of how things work.
I'm personally so glad that you didn't do that.
And in fact, as some of you know, I am a lawyer. I'm still a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for almost 45 years.
Can't let that go.
I can't do that.
And I just want to throw out the history of the CERT. It was a drugstore in there before, so that was pure retail.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at retail, there was no change of use that
Yeah.
would have required in the end. Retail is permitted in C1 and C2.
I
So,
mean, that's where MJ's was too.
Yeah. So it's,
Yeah.
the gym
Yes.
is the outlying use.
That's the outline.
right,
That was
And that-
the only one that doesn't fall.
Yeah, everyone else has done.
and that depends on what you call it. Because
I
if
would've-
it's a park and a recreation area, it's permitted.
I would have called it personal
Yes.
services.
Which one?
Personal services, and I think that's permitted by right. Anyway,
You would, yeah.
professional or
Professional.
uh,
Personal services, shops, including Well, here we go. Let me just read this. Personal services shops, including barber, beauty shop, shoe repair, self-service laundries, travel agencies, comma, etc. Whereas there's another one called a membership club. I don't know, maybe Sam's, we're gonna. Sam's in. I don't know what that, see, none of these.
There's an ordinance that would restrict that.
Yeah, there are no definitions in our code, so a membership club is by special review.
Okay, so it could
So
actually fall under membership.
it would have depended what they were doing in there, but it's all moot now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just
May I-
saying, yes, Margaret.
Oh,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. No, I was just going to ask a question. I don't think a special use review is required in this case. So if staff could clarify for me, what the 7 parking spaces, that's required for a use that is as of right?
That is where that is the crux of the issue, is that it's worded in such a way as, I think you can read it 3 different ways very clearly. And it is unclear which one of those 3 ways is intentional. So it's kind of hard to say.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't find really a parking requirement for an as of right use at this location.
Right.
That is clear to me, which is possible, that we don't have a parking requirement, really. We have a parking plan. Is that possible? And that we're not doing it right now. It was an idea of having parking, around town, off-site, have as many as you can on-site, but it's not really like a space per square foot unless you're doing a special use review.
Well, and that's the question, should this be considered a special use review? And I
No.
think.
I don't think so.
I think everybody is leaning to the answer being no, and I would agree. That, it doesn't seem like it rises to the level of a change of use to me either.
No, it seems like it is still a retail
retail.
establishment.
Mhm.
Nothing's changing,
So,
except it's getting a facelift.
Well, they're changing the use, but they're changing it to uses that are as of right in that zone.
exactly. It
Yes,
is whether it's retail or a restaurant, it is permitted by right. So the 3 choices,
So do you have any more questions for us?
I don't.
We can put down. We'll come back and see.
I don't, and I think, the whole thing with parking is an issue in town, of course, on street, off street. But the other 2 that they clearly were a change of use that did initiate this issue of parking, and because there's no way in this town you can create that many parking spaces,
Well,
we went with the back line.
right, and if you look at 16,643, Vice Chair, where it says when a business use is unable to provide the required on-site parking and or loading requirements, a property owner applicant shall be required to contribute to the parking fund. A sum is set forth in section 16,550 below per required parking space. Section 16,650 has been suspended. And so, without any sort of alteration of that code. So the question becomes, what is the mechanism for granting this to a property owner that is in some way still tries to conform to code?
Yeah. It is not clear.
That was
I-
repealed in 2015. Oh my God.
That's good. Yeah,
Look at.
yeah.
So to me, it seems retail is appropriate, that they've already met 3 of those parking spaces that would be required for retail. But the question becomes, what do we do about the other 4? I know in the staff report, it talked about like having one of those rear lots being ADA
So
accessible.
that was just for a van.
I don't think that's necessary at all, especially when there's ADA parking available both in this public lot and then also on the street. And it's still, the real intent of these parking requirements like downtown is for employees, so they're not taking up valuable customer spaces along the street and public parking lots. So them having, the applicant having 3 available off-street parking on their own property for employees, sounds great. Do you have bike racks by chance? Is it?
We do not. This was part of our ADA conversation. Indigo has a bike rack with our new ADA rack that was approved. Indigo's bike rack has some wheel spillover in front of our window, but currently with the bookstore, we inherited benches from Oregon.
Yeah.
But before the benches, people just
Put their bikes
They
everywhere.
would, yeah, and that's fine. That's what we intend for people to do. We suspect that since we have a lot of customers who go both to Indigo and to us.
Yeah.
They'll either use the Indigo bike rack or they'll just lean them up against our wall or our ADA, our ramp and our
Yeah.
railing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I mean, kind of ready to make a motion, and then I have a second motion not pertaining to this applicant.
Do we have to close the public hearing?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, gosh, I'm jumping the gun.
Okay, no, there's no further questions from the commission?
Oh, did you have?
Okay, then hearing none, I will now close the public hearing and turn the matter over to the planning commission for consideration of the matter listed on the agenda. And we've had a full discussion, so I don't know if we need to entertain a motion.
Where is your staff report? Oh, there we go.
Looking at the motions,
Yeah,
page 14.
I'm gonna go with one. If it gets shot down, it gets shot down. I move to recommend approval of SR 2026-001 because the plan substantially conforms to the comprehensive plan and the review criteria and performance standards have been met by the applicant with the following condition, that the applicant complete an off-street parking agreement for 4 spaces with the town of Paonia prior to receiving a temporary or permanent certificate of occupancy.
Can we have this? Do we
Yeah,
have
a second discussion, yeah.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because I don't think a special review is required. So I don't think I can support that motion.
Yeah, so we have a
I'd be
dangling,
afraid we'd be approving a special review that's not required.
his motion has not been seconded, Margaret, so, because we're all kind of like thinking like you are, I'm not. I mean, I have a question about the motion number 2, but not. I'm not gonna do a second.
Is this a parking variance instead of a special use review? Trying to figure out, or is there no parking requirement? It's still a
So
little,
if there is no second, this motion dies for a lack of second, and we can't have discussion until some sort of motion is made.
okay.
Well, we can have some discussion, can't we? I mean,
Only after second is made.
no. So a second isn't made, so it dies. If it dies for a second,
Then we wait for another motion.
you can't, there's no questioning the content of the motion that didn't get a second? I make a motion to move to dismiss SR 2026-001 because the remodel does not meet the requirements of subsection 16.6-10A to require off-street parking.
I second that motion.
Okay, now we can have discussion. So the real question becomes, there's a requirement for 7 parking spaces as a retail establishment. And our code is pretty quiet on, or is not clear because a lot of amendments have been made over time that have removed specific provisions. So the question then becomes, what do you do with the 4 other required off-street parking spaces that are needed?
So you're assuming the comma is in the correct place in this code.
I mean, there's other provisions of the code where it talks about minimum lot coverage or maximum lot coverage, or when it's in reverse, so.
So I have like, the bigger question is, we can't know if we didn't write this, what was the goal of this, but if it is it to drum up more parking because this to me reads as though it's a mechanism for catching buildings when it's like catching buildings when they change to bring them up to current code. That's how it reads to me, that it's doing that sort of thing, but it's trying to catch, buildings when they change, businesses when they change to bring them up to a new parking code, but there is no parking code to bring it up to.
Right.
So it's really unclear, right?
And that's,
So what is the goal?
to me, the way this is 16.6-10, the way it's worded, that people, this table 16-5 doesn't appear to apply unless the following number of off-street parking spaces shall be provided with the construction. I don't know the construction is defined. Addition, I don't know that addition is defined, or change of use.
Yeah, looking at definitions, none of those.
See, none of those are defined, or change of use which requires a special review to any of the buildings. And uses listed in 16-5 below. So my interpretation of this ordinance is that if you're not doing construction, you're doing remodeling, you're doing construction in your building, but I don't know if that's applicable here, you're not adding on. And I agree, I don't think you did a change of use, so I feel like table 16-5 doesn't apply. Because it doesn't, if we agree that this proposal isn't meeting the intent of A, because unless you start imposing a requirement, then you get into the how big are the parking spaces, et cetera. That's how I'm looking at this. I'm not saying I'm right, but we got some work to do on our chapter 16 ordinance for sure. But construction, anyway, go ahead.
So then the question becomes, there's still an off-street parking requirement.
How?
There's still an off-street parking requirement. It is, we're talking Article 6 within the zoning code, where we have different uses that require off-street parking.
Where are you?
I'm looking at our code, so
That's helpful, thank you. That's what I was looking for. So it's really that section, the off-street parking requirement, that's being triggered just for any use of the zone, and a retail use.
that's how I'm reading
Okay, and then would you apply for a variance to that ordinance? Is that how a person would get around the 7 spaces?
Are you referring to Article 6 specifically? Yeah, I'm interpreting it differently.
Remember, it's within the entire statutory scheme, so you
Yeah.
have to look at it from the entire chapter.
I
I don't know, to answer your question, Vice Chair, I don't know if a variance, because variances are very prescriptive on what you can vary, and we don't have any provision, even in this article, that shows what can be varied.
Yeah, and I think historically, because of the change of use at the 2 buildings in the 100 block, they didn't have any place to put any parking spaces. So that's why, through a little bit of duress and discussion,
We went that route.
we went with the parking lot. Fiona's is mostly open at night, street's not so full.
And then we had paired Blue Sage, that one,
Osage?
Blue Sage, that had an addition with their back alley.
And they didn't get asked
They
that.
did,
Where was their parking?
they got a parking agreement with us.
In the parking lot.
Correct.
So I guess, I don't know why they didn't, nobody had to get, wasn't the parking situation identified with the special use review with the 2 properties on the
I think
100
that
block?
was the trigger, yeah.
It went through the special use review, and then because it says right here, special use review, that triggered the parking discussion. So if we're going with, this is not, a special use review is not needed here, I don't see the trigger for them having to meet these parking requirements. Because 16-6-10 only starts with A, it doesn't say everybody needs to do this. Anyway, it's very convoluted, but we just kind of agreed there was not a change of use, and that what they're doing is. So is there a place, Stefan, do you know this chapter well enough, that there is a leap of thought between restaurants and retail businesses being permitted in C1? I just don't know where the segue is to required parking.
Okay,
That's
so,
my-
okay, there is another provision of code, section 16-180, application of regulation
16-180?
180, and that's general provision, says, no lot, area, yard, frontage, open space, or parking provided about any building for the purpose of complying with provisions of this chapter shall be considered as meeting the requirements for lot, area, yard, frontage, open space, parking for any other building on any other lot unless approved as a PUD or is specifically permitted as a, this is What a mess. Even talks. It's not-
Second that.
Yes.
Erected any existing building or structure moved, altered, or extended. So it seems to me that this parking lot is really gonna be popular.
For years, Bob. Yeah.
But, I feel like people have already been downtown using, the bookstore and everybody else. And just because it's bigger, I don't know that it means that there needs to be more parking necessarily.
I mean, it's not necessarily, you're right. I guess it's not gonna generate nothing bad. It's not gonna generate more traffic, right? Or just, right,
You figure everybody that went to that gym, I don't know what the hours were for the gym, some people probably rode the bike and walked, but a lot of people probably showed up and I don't know how many people. So can I ask a question about motion 2? Now, and and this is what I wanted to ask, and I didn't think about it when we were doing our questions. Do we actually have a off-street parking agreement between business and the town of Paonia? Do we have that right now?
we do.
Boy, what's it say?
I don't have the exact language, but
It would have been good to.
right,
I'm sorry, we don't have that to look at, because I don't know the contextual agreement.
yeah.
Does it say that their event spillover can only be in here in certain hours? Are there any limitations?
I think it was more, man, I'm gonna shoot from the hip. But I think it was more about finding off-street parking for employees or tenants of the building's employees, so that it could preserve customer parking along Grand Avenue. You've already got that taken care of with the 3 back spaces.
Right now, we have my motion. Go ahead, sorry.
It's her microphone picking you up.
Oh,
I think I'm ready for a vote.
Yeah.
A call.
We have a motion. Should we do a roll call?
Yes, please.
All right, Commissioner Fisher,
That's you.
Yes.
how do you vote?
This is the motion for denial.
dismissal.
Dismissal.
Would you like to
Yeah.
read again?
Yes, please read the motion back.
The motion is that I move to dismiss SR 2026-01 because the remodel does not meet the requirements of 16-610A to require off-street parking.
Yay.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye. Yay.
Commissioner Wynn,
I,
and Vice Chair Doherty.
Aye.
The motion
Motion
carries.
carries.
I do have a second motion. If I can be entertained, Vice Chair.
Sure. Another rules.
Yeah, I move to present the question of 16, or Chapter 16, Article 6, to the Board of Trustees for review and something I'm looking for. Edits, revision, that's it.
Say it again then, I'm sorry.
I move that we recommend to the Board of Trustees that we are given the authority to look at Chapter 16, Article 6 for review and revision.
I second that.
Now we can discuss.
Okay. Would you want to expand what can be reviewed?
Yeah,
I think there's so much spillover, like in definitions, for instance, that we would want to maybe create definitions.
well, for one, when you start looking at 16,643, it references a section of code that has been suspended indefinitely. And then 16,650, the parking fund is suspended indefinitely.
Right.
Which if it was, I think it's worth our review, because why was it suspended instead of just removed?
Right. So you would like to be able to do the research, but do you feel like if Article 6 off-street parking and loading, do we need to say that we'll look at definitions as well?
I think that
Or
our,
would you rather leave it at 6?
I think just that review and revision, there could be opportunity to look at further things, but
Okay,
I will limit it to that. There's new planning concepts that are also referenced in our comprehensive plan about parking requirements. You'll see in I'll just give you some examples, like Mesa County, with the development of that mall, there's all of these extra requirements for parking, and that's why you have these parking lots that are massive and take up more space and footprint than what the actual retail spots do. And so there was this change in professional planning that, has changed those requirements, those parking requirements. So I think it's worth looking at it on a broader level.
no, I agree. I just didn't know if we are confining if the motion is too confining to not include the definition section. I think.
My personal preference, since I'll probably be delegating this to Fina to review, is that we have this really continued scope of work, and then go from there. If there's additional need, we'd ask for additional.
Yeah, I think it's important because I think downtown Grand Avenue is a really different parking situation than any other part of town, really. And we need to think about, I know I have worked in municipalities that had no parking requirement for areas like this for this reason, because it's impossible to meet. But then you have to have a sort of a comprehensive parking plan for the town to deal with big events and festivals and stuff like that. So anyway, we just need a more comprehensive review of how we want to require parking for staff. Do we want to do that? Where would that be? All of those things. I think it's a good idea.
I'm going to call the question.
Want a roll call?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wynn?
Aye.
And Vice Chair Doherty?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now it's going to go back to you on Tuesday, or in a future meeting, yeah.
Get that firm.
That time.
We need to.
Can I ask a point of procedure? Or should I leave the meeting?
Is it for me to decide or for?
I don't
us
know
to
the
decide?
answer
Okay.
to that question is part of the issue. With the dismissal, does the fee return to the? Yeah, see?
You looking at me?
I'm looking at you.
I'm looking at you.
So, okay, what is it?
We still have it. Where's our fee?
The fees were
It's
for us,
200% fee.
and it was a special use review fee.
Oh.
I know there was
It's
mixed
the
up.
application.
I think they owe $4,000.
Give your email to the.
Wire transfer. Hang on, I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna ask you a question. Have they already paid for their remodel billing for that?
No, they have not.
Okay. I think we add it as a credit. Towards their billing.
Do we need a vote on it?
I move to add the special use review fee that was paid for this meeting to go towards the building permit final application fee as a credit.
I second.
Call the question.
Want a roll call vote?
Sure.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wynn?
Aye.
And Vice Chair Doherty?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
And I just want to let you know, the reason I said $4,000 is that these two poor people got a scam letter from me telling them that they owed $4,000 after they got approval for their a handicap ramp out front. So that's, if you're on TextMyGov or whatever Paonia has, there's a big scam going on because it looked really real. And I had no idea about it until Friday. And I was I was asking them to wire somebody $4,000.
Wow.
Not good.
It was very impressive looking.
So that's my joke.
It's the
Uh-huh.
second.
Anyway, I just,
Yeah, Vice Chair, there are no actions and presentations, so if you want to skip over that one to adjourn, you may.
Okay. Somebody want to bring a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Second.
Motion carries. So
Oh,
aye. I'll get it someday, I promise.
Oh, my, no, you did good.
Yes, you did too.
Even
Thank
remote,
you.
yeah.
Thank you for doing it. And
Thank
thank
you
you, guys.
Okay, meeting is adjourned at 7:06 PM.
Thank you. Now it's just your building permit and get